The galaxy had forgotten what fear felt like. For centuries, the stars had been quiet, their vast empires unchallenged and their ancient wars long ended. The great powers of the Orion arm sat comfortably upon their thrones, ruling over hundreds of worlds, secure in the belief that no new force could ever rise again to disturb the peace they had built through control and fear. But silence never lasts forever. Sometimes it's just the calm before something unstoppable awakens. It began as a whisper across deep space communication relays, one strange signal, too faint to decode at first. It carried no coordinates, no encryption, no diplomatic request. Just 6 words. Words that sent shivers down the spine of every intelligence officer who read them. "We're coming. Prepare yourselves. Humanity." No one knew who they were. The word humanity was a ghost, an ancient reference from forgotten data archives, believed to belong to a species that vanished millennia ago on a distant blue planet. But now, the galaxy's silence trembled as those words repeated again and again through the void, growing stronger each time. In the halls of the Vorth Dominion, the oldest empire in the spiral arm, panic spread like wildfire. Their analysts tore through ancient records, searching for any trace of this lost species. The only fragments they found spoke of a primitive race that once dreamed of reaching the stars, a race that burned its world with war, yet never stopped fighting. Legend said they were reckless, emotional, and terrifyingly adaptable. But those were only myths. Civilizations far older and far stronger had come and gone without leaving such noise behind. And yet this one sent a message that sounded more like a promise than a threat. At first, no one believed it. The Galactic Council dismissed it as a prank or the malfunction of a deep space probe. But then came the images, grainy signals showing something impossible. Fleets, massive constructs of steel and fury, crossing the edge of the void beyond known space. Ships without markings, without identification codes. Only one symbol burned on their hulls, a simple insignia, 2 crossed wings and a star. They called it the Banner of Humanity. The first to encounter them was a trade convoy near the Perseid Drift. The convoy sent out a greeting, as all civilized species did, offering coordinates for negotiation and trade. The reply came in a single transmission, firm, calm, and deeply human in tone. "We don't trade. We reclaim." Moments later, the convoy disappeared from all records. No debris, no escape pods, only the silence of space remained. News of the incident reached every corner of the galaxy within days. Some empires began to mobilize fleets while others fortified their borders. But the humans did not advance like conquerors. They moved slowly, deliberately, as if studying every world they passed. They made no demands, sent no ultimatums. Only one message echoed wherever they went. "We remember." On a distant moon called Aerith Prime, a young officer stood at the edge of the defense platform, staring into the black. The humans were weeks away, and yet the stars already seemed different, brighter, colder, heavier somehow. He had read the intercepted human broadcasts. They spoke of Earth, a homeworld turned legend. They spoke of unity born not from peace, but from struggle, of a species that had nearly destroyed itself countless times, yet always rebuilt stronger. The officer wondered what kind of people could carry such determination across the stars. What kind of fire burned inside them to make even death seem temporary? In the hidden councils of the galactic core, leaders argued endlessly. Some demanded war before the humans arrived, others whispered of surrender before the unknown even struck. Yet no one truly understood what they were facing. The few transmissions captured from human ships showed fleets unlike any seen before, massive vessels bristling with kinetic weaponry, their designs raw and practical, built for endurance rather than elegance. They didn't use the sleek energy shields of other races. They relied on armor so thick it made plasma scatter like rain. Their communications were strange too, full of voices, laughter, songs. Not mechanical or cold, but alive. There was something profoundly unsettling about it. The other races had long forgotten the chaos of feeling. They lived by reason, by order. Humanity seemed to thrive in defiance of it. Their words carried warmth and fury at once. They spoke of honor, vengeance, and memory, of something the galaxy had not seen in ages, hope. As the human fleet approached the edge of the core systems, the stars themselves seemed to dim. Scouts reported entire colonies vanishing without resistance. Not destroyed, just emptied. The humans took nothing. They didn't occupy worlds or enslave species. They only left behind their message, etched into the sky in blazing energy script. "We warned you. We are here." Rumors began to spread among the outer colonies. Rumors that the humans had once been victims of the Great Galactic Purge ages ago. That the ancient empires, fearing their rapid rise, had wiped them from existence before they could reach the stars. And now they had returned from the ashes of extinction, fueled by memory and revenge. Some believed it. Others called it madness. But none could deny the truth spreading across the stars. The silence of the galaxy was ending. In the vast observation deck of the core fortress, the Supreme Commander of the Council stood before the holographic display of approaching ships. Thousands of red markers, each one a human vessel, lit up like blood drops in the dark. No negotiations, no peace talks, just the quiet advance of an ancient fury. The commander turned to his aides and spoke softly. "If they are truly human," he said, "then they won't stop. Not until they finish what they started." Meanwhile, on the lead human flagship, a colossal dreadnought known as the Resolute, the crew moved with quiet precision. The captain stood before the viewing window, watching the alien stars drift closer. Behind him, the crew prepared for contact. He could see the faint glimmers of alien fleets forming defensive lines, desperate to hold their ground. Yet he felt no fear, only purpose. "They took everything from us once," he murmured, his voice calm but heavy. "Now we take back what's ours." The communications officer nodded. "Orders, sir?" The captain stared into the dark where the stars met the edge of the alien world. "Send the signal," he said. A deep hum rolled through the ship as thousands of transmitters activated across the fleet. The same 6 words that had haunted the galaxy echoed once more, louder than ever, reaching every listening ear in every system. "We're coming. Prepare yourselves. Humanity." Across the stars, panic erupted. Fleets scrambled, alarms wailed, and leaders issued frantic commands. But deep within that fear, something else stirred. Something the galaxy hadn't felt in eons. Awe. The realization that something unstoppable was awakening. And in that moment, as the first human warships broke through the veil of light, the galaxy's silence finally shattered. But no one knew yet, this was not invasion. This was reckoning, and the humans had only just begun. The first human fleet crossed the outer rim of the galaxy like a storm. Every sensor, every listening post, every outpost that tried to scan them returned the same thing: noise. A deep, low signal that distorted communications and silenced entire networks. No one knew if it was a weapon or a warning. But one thing was clear. Humanity wasn't just coming. They were everywhere at once. The galaxy had spent thousands of years believing itself secure. Borders had been drawn. Treaties had been carved in stone. Empires had risen and fallen under the watchful eyes of old, complacent powers. The idea that a single species could threaten it all seemed impossible. And yet here they were. Humans, a race long thought extinct, moving with purpose and coordination that no one could explain. The Vorth Dominion was the first to attempt contact. They sent emissaries to the edge of the human advance zone, hoping to open peace talks before things escalated. The emissaries never returned. Only their transmission logs survived. The last recorded words were quiet, almost reverent. "They look like us." That simple phrase rippled through every government, every intelligence agency. If the humans were truly similar to the ancient records, bipedal, carbon-based, emotional, and adaptable, it meant the galaxy wasn't as unique as it once believed. In a small command station orbiting the ice world of Nevran 6, a group of alien scientists pored over the few human broadcasts they could intercept. Most were encrypted, but one leaked through, a message spoken in clear universal language. "We warned you to remember us." "You didn't, so now we remind you." The message looped endlessly, calm and measured. But beneath that calm was something raw, an emotion most of the galaxy had forgotten. Pain. Across countless systems, old files were reopened. Fragments of history buried under centuries of censorship began to surface. There were records of an ancient alliance, millennia ago, a coalition that had decided to contain a rising human threat before they could reach interstellar strength. They had burned Earth's skies, shattered its colonies, and erased its name from every database. But the purge had failed. Somehow, somewhere, humanity survived. And now they were back, not as the hunted, but as the hunters. Yet no one understood how they had done it. How a species erased from history could build fleets larger than any single empire. Some believed they had allies hidden beyond the galactic rim. Others whispered that humans had found something out there, something ancient, powerful, and willing to guide them. But there were no confirmations. Only silence from the stars they came from. Among the human fleet, rumors spread too. Some said Earth no longer existed, that humanity had moved on from planets entirely, living among massive roaming fleets called the Arcs. Generations born and raised among metal and void taught that the stars once belonged to them and that they were taken. They carried stories like sacred truths, each word a memory of home, passed down from those who had witnessed its fall. Inside the Resolute, the air was still and heavy. The captain stood in the observation deck again, watching the blue glow of alien worlds far ahead. His crew worked quietly, their faces calm, but their eyes hard. Each one carried the same unspoken weight, the memory of loss that no one outside their kind could ever understand. To them, this wasn't conquest. It was closure. Signal from Command Arc, the communications officer said softly. They want confirmation of next movement. The captain nodded. Transmit our report. Tell them Phase 1 is complete. Understood. And the Council's response? The captain's jaw tightened. Predictable. They'll resist. They always do. As the officer sent the transmission, the captain turned his gaze back to the stars. He wasn't a man driven by hate. He didn't speak of revenge or destruction. For him, this mission wasn't about domination. It was about remembrance. The galaxy had wiped humanity's name from history, but names had power, and his fleet was here to carve it back into the stars. Meanwhile, on the planet Carthion, one of the most advanced worlds in the core, panic was turning into action. Fleets of drones patrolled the skies, scanning for the unknown. Governments issued emergency broadcasts urging calm. Civilians gathered around giant screens, watching shaky footage of human ships moving through the void. The ships were terrifying, not because they looked monstrous, but because they didn't. They were functional, clean, human. One reporter described it best. They don't come to destroy everything. They come to remind us what we've forgotten, to fear what we can't control. In the council chambers, representatives argued endlessly. Some demanded negotiations. Others called for an all-out preemptive strike. The younger species, those who had never known true war, looked to their elders for guidance, but the older ones stayed silent. Deep down they remembered. They were the descendants of those who had once betrayed humanity, and their silence spoke louder than any words. The mystery only deepened when the humans began transmitting coordinates, ancient ones. Sites scattered across the galaxy, old ruins, dead systems, forgotten battlefields. At first, no one understood. But when the first exploration teams arrived at those coordinates, they found the impossible, evidence of human presence from thousands of years ago. Rusted wreckage, skeletal remains of soldiers still in their armor, fragments of language inscribed on the walls. Humanity had been here before. They had fought here before, and somehow they had returned to the exact same places, as if following a map drawn in blood and memory. Among the alien races, fear turned into curiosity. Could the humans have been watching them all this time, waiting for the moment to strike? Some scholars began to question everything they knew about galactic history. How much of it had been true, and how much had been rewritten by those who wanted humanity forgotten? On one broadcast, a historian from the Rhenian cluster dared to speak openly. If these humans truly survived extinction, then they possess something greater than technology, something this galaxy has lost, the will to endure. The broadcast was quickly shut down, but not before millions heard it. Back on the Resolute, The captain received a private transmission from another fleet commander. The voice on the other end was calm but edged with exhaustion. "Do you think they'll understand why we're doing this?" The captain paused before answering. "No, not yet. But they will. And when they fight back, then we'll show them who taught us how to fight." The words hung in the air, heavy and certain. The humans knew resistance was coming. They expected it. They wanted it, because every battle they faced now was a reminder of what they'd overcome before. Outside, the stars shifted as the fleet prepared to move again. Massive engines ignited in silent bursts of blue light. A wall of steel and purpose stretched across the void, carrying a single message burned into every hull: humanity endures. Across the galaxy, systems went dark one after another. Not from destruction, but from choice. The humans didn't want to conquer. They wanted to erase the false order that had buried them. Worlds that surrendered were left untouched. Worlds that resisted simply lost their voice in the stars. It was as if humanity was rewriting the galaxy not with war, but with silence. Still, no one truly understood what their final goal was. Were they seeking revenge against the ancient empires? Or were they searching for something lost among the stars? Something older than war itself? Every intercepted signal carried fragments of strange data, coordinates pointing deeper and deeper toward the galactic core. The closer they moved, the more distorted their transmissions became, as if something immense was waiting there. Rumors began spreading across human channels too. Whispers of an old beacon, a last message left behind by the first generation that had survived the purge. Some said it was hidden in the center of the galaxy, a monument to Earth itself. Others believed it was something far greater, a truth the ancient empires feared above all else. Whatever it was, humanity was heading straight for it, and as the Resolute cut through the darkness, its captain looked upon the endless horizon of stars and spoke quietly to himself. Almost like a prayer, "We're not here to destroy them. We're here to remind them what it means to be alive." In the distance, the first alien defense lines began to form, thousands of ships locking into position, ready to make their final stand. But they didn't know. This wasn't the beginning of war. It was the return of something the galaxy thought it had buried forever. And the silence was about to end again. The first real battle began on the edges of the Helion system. The alien coalition had gathered nearly 2,000 ships, representing 12 different empires, each with their own technology, tactics, and fears. Their fleets filled the darkness like a wall of light, stretching from one end of the system to the other. Every ship pointed its weapons toward the same direction, the one from which humanity was coming. For 3 days, they waited in silence. Then, without warning, the sensors caught movement. A faint distortion shimmered across space, like a ripple through water. One by one, human ships emerged from the void, massive and silent, their hulls scarred but unbroken. No banners, no transmissions, only the slow, deliberate approach of something that had already decided the outcome. On the command deck of the Resolute, the captain studied the enemy formation. His officers watched him quietly, waiting for his order. He didn't look nervous. He'd seen worse. The aliens had power in numbers, but humanity had something they didn't: unity. Every ship in the fleet moved like part of a single body, their formations precise, their communications near instinctive. The captain finally spoke, his voice calm. "No opening salvos. Let them make the first move." In the alien flagship Thrion's Grace, the coalition's high commander shouted over the noise of clashing voices. Every species wanted a different plan. Some demanded they fire immediately. Others hesitated, still hoping for negotiation. The high commander slammed his clawed hand onto the console and growled, "They gave no answer to our envoys. They've come for war. Fire!" Thousands of plasma cannons lit up the dark, painting the void in color and fury. Beams of light tore through space, slamming into the human formation, yet nothing broke. When the light faded, the humans were still there, moving forward, their armor blackened but intact. And then finally they answered. It wasn't with words. It was with silence. No radio chatter, no signals, just the sudden terrifying precision of their response. Massive kinetic rounds tore through the coalition's front line, splitting ships apart with brutal efficiency. Human weapons weren't elegant. They were raw, physical, devastating. Every hit was deliberate. Every ship that fell left behind debris that told a single story. The galaxy had underestimated them. On the surface of Helion's third moon, civilians watched from afar. A young engineer named Lyra stared up at the sky where streaks of fire cut across the horizon. Her people had never known real war. Now every explosion above reminded them how fragile peace really was. She'd heard rumors that humans once lived much like them, dreaming of stars, building, exploring, until their hope was taken. She wondered if this was revenge or justice. Back on the Resolute, the crew worked in grim silence. Every officer understood that this wasn't about conquest, it was a test. The galaxy was watching. They were showing what humanity could do when pushed. The captain's voice echoed across the ship. Maintain fire discipline. We're not here to burn the galaxy. We're here to make them listen. But not all humans agreed. On the ship Vanguard 1, a different commander watched the chaos unfold with a darker resolve. His voice was sharp as he gave orders. They destroyed Earth. They buried our history. Don't show them mercy. They didn't show us any. His crew followed without question. His fleet broke formation, unleashing full bombardment across the alien lines. Within minutes, entire sections of the Coalition fleet were in ruins. The captain of the Resolute saw it happen on his display. His jaw tightened. The humans had always been united in purpose, but now cracks were beginning to form. Revenge was a dangerous fuel. It burned bright, but it consumed everything around it. "Patch me through to Vanguard," he ordered. "Channel open." He stared at the screen, where the other commander appeared, lit by the red glow of battle. "You're out of line," the captain said. "We're not here to destroy their worlds. We're here to remind them who we are," the other replied coldly. "This is what they made us." The channel cut off. The captain stood in silence for a long moment before turning to his crew. "Record everything. History must know both sides of this." As the battle raged on, the Coalition's lines began to fracture. Ships fled in chaos, some retreating deeper into the system, others self-destructing to avoid capture. Yet even in victory, humanity found no satisfaction. Every victory felt hollow. Every explosion a reminder of what had been lost long ago. Meanwhile, far from the front lines, in a quiet station orbiting the dead world of Cora 7, a small group of researchers studied something the humans had left behind on a captured planet. It wasn't a weapon. It was a monument. A small black structure made of unknown alloy, inscribed with words in a forgotten tongue. When translated, the message was simple. We remember those who tried to erase us. The researchers didn't understand what it meant, but deep down, they felt the chill of something ancient. A pain that had lasted longer than memory itself. In the Galactic core, the Council grew desperate. Every empire blamed the other for the growing disaster. Old alliances began to crumble. The Vorth Dominion accused the Telleran Alliance of hiding information about humanity's past. The Tellerans responded by threatening to leave the Coalition entirely. Within days, the once mighty Council was tearing itself apart. Somewhere beyond their reach, in the dark regions of human-controlled space, new fleets began to awaken. Entire generations who had grown up among the stars prepared to join the fight. They didn't fight for vengeance or conquest. They fought because they had been raised with one belief: never again. But something deeper was happening, something even the humans didn't fully understand. The closer they moved toward the galactic core, the stranger the signals became. Ghost frequencies, fragments of human language from centuries ago, echoing across systems where no humans should have been. Engineers reported hearing whispers in the comms, old Earth transmissions, fragments of music, recordings of laughter. It was as if the past itself was reaching out to them. The captain of the Resolute stood in the control chamber one night, listening to a faint transmission playing through static. It was old, very old. A woman's voice, speaking in the ancient Earth language, saying, "To whoever finds this, don't forget who we were." He closed his eyes and let the words sink in. Humanity wasn't just fighting the galaxy anymore. They were fighting to prove that they had existed. Meanwhile, in the remnants of the Coalition fleet, something unexpected happened. One of the alien commanders, a veteran of countless wars, ordered a ceasefire. His ships powered down their weapons and transmitted a signal directly to the humans. "If your war is for memory," he said, "then speak. Show us what was done." But no reply came, only silence. The human fleet continued to advance, their lights cutting through the void like judgment itself. Back in the Council's war room, chaos reigned. Systems were falling one by one. No one could predict where the humans would strike next. Some leaders began evacuating their homeworlds, while others spoke of surrender. But surrender to what? To a species no one truly understood? As the Council argued, the stars flickered outside the great window, dozens of them dimming all at once. A massive energy surge rippled through the galaxy, originating from deep in the core. No one knew if it was human technology or something older. All they knew was that it was spreading fast. On the Resolute, alarms blared as the sensors detected the surge. "Source unknown," the officer said. "Power readings off the scale. It's like it's waking something up." The captain watched the readouts. For the first time, his expression shifted from calm to uncertainty. Whatever was waiting in the center of the galaxy, it wasn't just history. It was something alive, something tied to humanity's forgotten past. He turned toward the vast expanse of stars ahead. "Signal all fleets," he said quietly. "Stay on course. Whatever's out there, we face it together." And as the human armada pushed deeper into the heart of the galaxy, the silence grew heavy once again. Not the calm before a battle, but the kind that comes before revelation. No one knew what they would find. But everyone, human or not, could feel it. The galaxy was about to remember everything it had tried so hard to forget. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath as humanity pressed closer to the core. The stars grew fewer here, replaced by strange clouds of dark matter and energy storms that twisted light into shapes that didn't belong in nature. Every ship in the human fleet could feel it, the weight of something ancient stirring beneath the silence. Communications began to flicker, systems glitched, and whispers filled the comms once more, voices from the past, repeating half-finished words, fragments of human history long lost. Inside the Resolute, the crew worked in near silence. Even the hum of the engines sounded different, deeper, as though space itself resisted their passage. The captain stood at the observation window, watching as the void pulsed faintly with red and gold light. He'd seen countless battles, but this was different. This wasn't war anymore. It was revelation. "How close are we?" he asked quietly. "2 jumps from the signal origin," the navigator replied. "But readings are unstable. Space ahead is bending." The captain didn't turn. "Bending how?" "Like it's alive, sir." No one said anything after that. The humans had come across many strange things in the galaxy, ruins of dead civilizations, derelict ships lost to time, but nothing like this. Whatever was ahead of them wasn't natural. It wasn't technology either. It was something in between. At the same time, across the galaxy, the alien empires were collapsing into chaos. The Council was gone, its members scattered or dead. Entire fleets refused orders, too terrified to fight. But a few remained defiant. Among them was the Vorth Dominion, one of the oldest and most powerful species. Their leader, High Chancellor Raltar, had watched everything unravel. The fall of worlds, the silence spreading across communication relays. And he knew this was the end of their era. Still, he refused to flee. "If they seek the core," he told his generals, "then that is where we will meet them. Let history remember that we did not hide." He ordered every remaining ship in the Dominion to converge near the Galactic center, forming a defensive perimeter around the unknown energy source. They didn't understand what it was, only that the humans were heading straight toward it. In Raltar's mind, it didn't matter what lay there. He would make sure the humans never reached it. Back aboard the Resolute, the captain received the intelligence report about the Dominion's formation. Thousands of ships were waiting ahead, blocking the humans' path. It was a trap, but not one meant for victory. It was meant for desperation. The aliens had nothing left to lose. The captain walked to the center of the bridge. "Open channel to all fleets." A moment later, every human vessel heard his voice echo through their comms. "We've come far. We've seen what the galaxy tried to forget. This is what they fear. The truth buried in the heart of their empire. We didn't fight to destroy them. We fought to be remembered, but now we fight to uncover what was taken from us. Whatever happens next, we go together. Across thousands of ships, his words lit a fire. Generations of humans who had grown up under steel ceilings and artificial suns felt the same pulse of purpose. They weren't soldiers of conquest. They were the children of extinction. The order came down. Prepare for final advance. Engines roared as the fleet pushed through the last stretch of dark space. The stars around them twisted and vanished. Ahead, a faint glow grew stronger, flickering like a heartbeat. And then they saw it. A massive sphere suspended in the void, ancient and scarred, larger than any world. Energy arced across its surface like veins of fire. It wasn't natural. It was built. Sensors identified impossible readings. The sphere's core pulsed with energy signatures identical to human DNA patterns. It was as if the structure itself recognized them. On the alien side, panic spread through the Dominion fleet. Their sensors couldn't interpret what they were seeing. "It's responding to them," one officer shouted. "That structure, it's not alien at all. It's human." But that made no sense. Humanity wasn't supposed to have been in this part of the galaxy. Yet every scan confirmed it. The design patterns, the alloy composition, even the energy resonance all matched ancient human technology, predating known records by millennia. The captain stared at the readings in silence. "We built this," he whispered. "Before the purge. Before the fall." No one knew how that was possible. Could humans have reached the core long before they were wiped out? And if so, what had they left behind? The alien fleet began firing without warning, desperate to stop the humans from reaching the sphere. Explosions lit the void as energy beams cut across space. Human ships responded instantly, returning fire with precise, devastating bursts. The battle that followed was unlike any before it. Both sides fought with everything they had, humans outnumbered, aliens desperate. Space burned with light and metal. Inside the Resolute, alarms blared as debris tore past the hull. The crew held steady, their voices calm but their movements sharp. Every man and woman on board knew this might be their last battle. Yet not one ship broke formation. They kept moving toward the sphere, shields failing, engines overheating, but their resolve never wavered. The captain gripped the edge of the console. "Stay on target. Ignore the fire. Get us closer!" A blast hit the ship's side, throwing everyone off balance. The lights flickered, and smoke filled the bridge. "Damage to port thrusters!" someone shouted. "Divert power. We hold the line." Through the chaos, the sphere continued to pulse faster, its light growing so bright that even damaged ships turned their cameras away. The humans didn't know what would happen if they reached it, but they knew they had to. It was calling to them, like a heartbeat they'd been hearing their entire existence without realizing it. On the alien flagship, Raltar watched in disbelief as his fleet fell apart. His ships were being torn apart one after another, but he refused to retreat. "Do you see what you've done?" he hissed at the image of the Resolute on his display. "You awaken something you don't understand. You think this will save you, but it will end us all." But his warning never reached them. Communication lines were jammed. The humans pressed forward, unstoppable, their fleet pushing through the debris field like a single living organism. Finally, the Resolute broke through the last defensive line. Ahead loomed the sphere, so massive it seemed to swallow the stars behind it. The captain stared at it, mesmerized. "Bring us in," he said softly. As the ship approached, the energy around the sphere began to react. Lightning-like tendrils of light reached out, touching the hulls of nearby human ships. Instead of damaging them, the energy seemed to merge with them, like recognition. Computer systems began to flicker with strange data, symbols in ancient human script appearing on screens. "We're getting transmissions," the comms officer said, his voice trembling. "They're old. They're coming from inside the sphere. Play it," the captain ordered. A voice filled the bridge, soft and faint, as though carried across centuries. "To the children of Earth. If you hear this, it means we failed to protect you. But it also means you survived. Inside this core lies the memory of our world, preserved in light. What you do next will decide if we remain a memory or become a beginning again." The crew froze. No one spoke. The captain's eyes narrowed. "This is it," he whispered. "The truth they tried to erase." But before he could say more, the ship shook violently. Another blast, one final desperate strike from the Dominion flagship. The shot hit the Resolute directly, tearing through its side. Systems failed. Sparks flew. The bridge went dark. "Fire's spreading on Deck 3, someone shouted. The captain pushed himself up, coughing through the smoke. "Damage control! Keep us steady! We're not turning back now!" Outside, the human fleet rallied around the Resolute, forming a defensive ring as alien ships continued their suicidal assault. The sphere's energy flared brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat ready to burst. In that moment, every ship, human and alien, felt the same tremor through space. The sphere was activating. The core of the galaxy itself began to shimmer. On the human channels, one final signal broke through. A simple transmission, shared across every ship. "Stand together. Whatever happens next, humanity endures." And then, the sphere opened, a blinding light spread outward, swallowing everything in its path. Ships, planets, and the empty void itself. The last thing anyone saw before the light consumed them was the Earth emblem burning bright across the Resolute's hull. And then, silence. The galaxy held its breath again. But this time it wasn't out of peace. It was out of fear of what would come next. The message echoed across every corner of known space. The words, "We're coming," had already shaken the Galactic Council to its core, but what came next wasn't fear. It was silence. A silence born of disbelief, denial, and quiet calculation. Many in the galaxy thought humanity's warning was just noise, a desperate bluff from a primitive world that had vanished centuries ago. But deep down, the older species, the ones who remembered the Terran Wars, knew better. They had seen what humans could do when cornered, when desperate, when united by something greater than survival. And this silence, this waiting, felt like standing in the shadow of an incoming storm. The signal had come from the edge of the Perseus arm, carried through old Terran frequency bands, long thought dead. The coordinates attached pointed to a derelict system. No colonies, no trade routes, just an empty stretch of dark matter fields and fractured moons. But then came the scans. Fleets of unknown design, metallic signatures unfamiliar to any galactic navy were forming patterns across the void. Not random movement, but formation drills, human drills. And this time, the Terrans weren't hiding behind words or peace talks. They were preparing for something big. Admiral Rye of the Valen Confederacy stared at the data feed projected before her. She had seen battles, rebellions, even planetary purges. But this was different. The numbers didn't add up. Humanity had been silent for almost 400 years. How could they suddenly appear again with technology that rivaled the most advanced empires? She turned to her second officer, a quiet, stone-faced being with crystalline skin. "How accurate is this?" she asked. "It's verified, Admiral," he replied. "Cross-checked with 5 deep space arrays. Whatever they are, they've rebuilt, and fast." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, aboard a massive orbital platform hidden beyond the shadow of a dying star, a single human stood overlooking the void. The man's eyes were tired, but his expression held a quiet certainty. The fleets moving in the distance weren't just war machines. They were the last fragments of a species that had crawled back from extinction. The archives called him Commander Hale, but no one alive really knew his real name. To them, he was a symbol, a voice that carried the message, "Humanity is not gone. We were just waiting." Hale turned toward the holographic projection beside him. The image showed the galactic map, hundreds of colored lines representing alliances, trade routes, and military outposts. But most of it had faded over the centuries, replaced by power struggles and forgotten histories. "They think we're ghosts," he said quietly. "Let them think that. Ghosts don't need permission to haunt what's theirs." His second-in-command, a younger officer with visible cybernetic scars, spoke cautiously. "The Council will unite against us once they're certain we're real. They'll see this as an invasion." Hale didn't answer immediately. His gaze lingered on a small blinking marker at the far edge of the map. Earth, or what was left of it. Then they'll see what invasion really looks like, he replied. Across the stars, rumors spread faster than light. Some believed the Terrans had forged alliances with forgotten species from the Rim. Others said they had discovered ancient war relics from before the first galactic expansion. But what no one could explain was how a species nearly erased from history had suddenly become the most talked-about threat in the galaxy. And worse, why they hadn't made any demands. They hadn't attacked, hadn't declared war. They had simply sent a message, "We're coming." Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere was thick with unease. Leaders of a dozen species argued across the shimmering hall, their voices layered in frustration. The holographic projection of the Terran message played again on loop, as if repetition could somehow make sense of it. The Varn Collective wanted to send a preemptive strike. The Hothari claimed it was a trap to draw fleets away from the core worlds, but none could deny that something was moving in the dark. The Chancellor of the Council finally raised her voice above the chaos. For 300 years, humanity has been a myth, a story we tell our children about the dangers of uncontrolled ambition. If they've returned, we must assume they've learned and evolved. Her words carried weight, but also fear. Every empire in that chamber had once benefited from humanity's fall. Each had claimed their colonies, their resources, their ships. If the Terrans remembered that, if they came back for retribution, the galaxy would burn. Back in the shadows of the Rim, Hale's fleet continued to grow. New ships emerged from slipspace, each one marked with the insignia of old Earth's forgotten nations. The world had changed, but humanity's memory hadn't. Every survivor carried stories passed down through generations about betrayal, exile, and the long silence that followed. The humans had fled after the collapse, scattered among the stars, hiding from those who had turned on them. But now they were coming together again, not to destroy, but to reclaim. "Sir," the young officer said, interrupting Hale's thoughts. "Scouts report Council probes entering the sector. Should we intercept?" Hale looked out the viewport, the stars reflecting in his eyes. "No," he said. "Let them look. Let them see what's coming. Fear is a better weapon than any cannon." But deep inside, even Hale knew there was more at stake than vengeance. The humans had built something beyond simple survival. Hidden worlds where their culture thrived, where art, science, and spirit had flourished away from the politics of the galaxy. To protect that, to protect their rebirth, they would have to fight. And somewhere beyond the fleet, in a small outpost orbiting a broken moon, a transmission quietly began to broadcast across open channels. A voice, clear, calm, and unmistakably human, spoke just 6 words. "The silence ends when we arrive." That simple message sent ripples across the stars. The Galactic Council scrambled, activating fleets, summoning ancient defense protocols long dormant. Every ship, every weapon, every commander was suddenly on alert. But no one really knew where to strike first. The Terrans moved like shadows, appearing in one system, disappearing in another, never leaving wreckage, never showing their true numbers. It was psychological warfare, and it was working. By the time the first human fleet appeared in open space, the galaxy was already trembling. Their ships didn't resemble the old Terran designs. They were sharper, darker, forged from unknown alloys, the kind of vessels that looked more like living things than machines. They didn't broadcast identification codes, didn't respond to hails. They just drifted in formation, silent, patient, watching. And yet there was something else. A faint pulse, barely detectable, resonating from within their hulls. The scientists called it a neural signature. The rumor? That the ships weren't just piloted by humans, they were human. A merging of mind and machine, the next stage of their evolution. As the tension reached breaking point, the galaxy held its breath. The first move hadn't been made yet, but everyone knew it was coming. Every sensor array, every military fleet, every frightened citizen looked to the same dark patch of space, waiting for the signal that would change everything. And then, without warning, the stars themselves seemed to flicker. The Terran signal flared brighter than before, filling every channel across every world. For a brief, fleeting second, every being across the galaxy heard the same voice whisper through the static. "Cold. Human and resolute, we warned you. And then, everything went silent again. The silence that followed those two words was heavier than any explosion. Every species across the galaxy froze as the message from humanity faded into static. No demands, no declaration, just that chilling reminder. We warned you. On countless worlds, leaders argued, soldiers prepared, and civilians stared at the skies, waiting for what would come next. But nothing came immediately. Days turned into weeks. The galaxy trembled under the weight of anticipation, unsure whether to fight, flee, or beg for mercy. And then, without a single announcement, the stars shifted again. Humanity had arrived. It began at the edge of the Orion Gate, a cluster of wormholes controlled by the Council's defense fleets. Massive fortresses guarded the system, their guns capable of shredding asteroids into dust. But when the human armada emerged, those weapons didn't fire. Not because of fear, but because the sensors couldn't lock onto them. The ships weren't just fast. They bent light around them, slipping between detection like whispers in the dark. One by one, the human vessels appeared, surrounding the fortress without a single shot. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was looking into the face of the species it had thought extinct. Admiral Rye watched the footage from her command bridge, disbelief painted across her features. The Terran ships didn't broadcast energy signatures like anything she'd seen before. They pulsed rhythmically, almost alive, moving in perfect unison. "How are they doing this?" she whispered. Her science officer, pale and shaking, responded, "We think they're linked through some kind of collective neural network. The fleet moves as one." On the lead ship, Commander Hale stood before a dimly glowing console. The AI systems, bonded with human minds, spoke to him through the hum of the ship's core. "Target coordinates confirmed," it said in a tone that sounded eerily human. Hale didn't give the order to fire. Instead, he opened a transmission to the entire galaxy. His voice, deep and controlled, carried across every channel. "This is humanity. We warned you because we remembered. You burned our worlds, scattered our people, and erased our name. But we rebuilt. Without your laws, without your wars. We've returned not to conquer, but to remind you what you tried to forget." The Council fleets scrambled, positioning themselves in defensive arrays. Thousands of ships pointed their weapons toward the human formation. The Chancellor of the Galactic Council appeared on the broadcast, her voice steady but desperate. "You can't undo what's already been built." The galaxy moved on. "We can coexist. There's no need for this." Hale's expression didn't soften. "Then prove it," he replied. "Stand down." But fear had its own logic. A single cruiser, panicked by the silence, fired. One beam of plasma cut through the void, striking the hull of a human vessel. The explosion that followed wasn't from impact, it was from reaction. The fleet moved instantly. In less than 5 seconds, the Council's entire front line was disabled. Not destroyed, just stopped. Engines offline. Weapons frozen. Communications cut. Every system dead. It was a show of power, not war. Humanity had found a way to turn energy itself against its wielder. Across the stars, panic spread. No one understood what kind of weapon that was. The Council fleets withdrew, leaving only the flagship to face Hale's armada. Inside, Admiral Rye stood silent. Her heart pounded as she realized the truth. Humans weren't here to destroy. They were here to judge. She opened a private channel. "Commander Hale," she said, voice trembling. "If your goal is peace, this isn't the way." Hale's face appeared on her screen, tired and human in a way she didn't expect. "You think we want peace?" he said quietly. "Peace died when your kind betrayed us. We only want truth." Rye's voice softened. "Then what truth are you looking for?" Hale hesitated before answering. "Why did you turn on us?" For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Rye said the words that no one in the galaxy had dared to admit. "Because you scared us." She looked away, her voice breaking. "You grew too fast. You advanced too far. Every world you touched changed. We thought if we didn't stop you, you'd control everything." Hale's eyes darkened. "So you destroyed us instead." In that silence, the fleets around them waited. Every being, every species held its breath. Hale finally spoke again, but softer now. "We didn't come to rule. We came to survive. You taught us that the galaxy doesn't forgive the weak. We learned. We evolved. But we never forgot. He turned to his officers. Transmit the proof. Suddenly, every comm system across the galaxy activated. A data burst flooded every channel, records, footage, archives of humanity's fall. Betrayal by allies, massacres hidden by the Council, the deliberate destruction of Earth's colonies. The galaxy saw it all. The truth that had been buried for centuries was now undeniable. The silence wasn't humanity's shame, it was the Council's outrage spread. Entire species began questioning the Council's rule. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. For the first time in ages, unity fractured. But Hale didn't smile. He stood motionless, knowing what came next. His communications officer whispered, "Sir, the Council is collapsing. Should we move in?" Hale shook his head. "No. Let them see themselves for what they are. The galaxy doesn't need another conqueror. It needs to remember what it means to be alive." Then came the twist no one saw coming. As the chaos spread, sensors across the human fleet detected an unknown signal. Something ancient, buried deep in the galactic core, was activating. Hale's AI confirmed it. A weapon system from the old war. Council command protocols are triggering it. Hale's expression turned grim. They're going to wipe everything, to cover their shame. The Council, desperate to maintain control, had unleashed a last-resort defense grid capable of cleansing entire sectors. Even they couldn't stop it now. The galaxy's own creation had turned against them. Hale made a decision that would define humanity forever. All ships divert energy to shield projection. We stop this or we all burn. The fleets moved together. Human minds linked across the network, channeling their combined energy into a massive barrier. The weapon fired, a wave of light tearing across the stars. The human shield held for mere seconds before fracturing, but those seconds changed everything. The weapon's energy collapsed inward, imploding instead of expanding, destroying itself before it could consume the galaxy. The blast faded, leaving only silence again. The stars flickered back into view, and the human fleet, battered but intact, drifted among the ruins. Hale looked out at the aftermath, his voice quiet. "We didn't win," he said. "We just stopped everyone from losing." Admiral Rye's ship reappeared on comms, damaged but alive. "You saved them," she said softly, "even after everything." Hale gave a faint smile. "That's what humans do. We survive, and we remember." The Council dissolved within days, replaced by a fragile new alliance of free worlds. Humanity didn't take control, they simply vanished again, scattering their fleets into the stars. Some said they returned to rebuild Earth. Others claimed they left the galaxy entirely. But their message remained etched into every comm channel. A warning and a promise. When the galaxy forgets its soul, humanity will remind it. And for centuries afterward, travelers crossing the edge of known space would sometimes hear a faint whisper through their transmitters. A human voice in the static saying, "We're still here." For weeks after the blast, the galaxy remained in stunned silence. Communication networks flickered on and off as systems tried to reconnect, but what people really struggled to reconnect with was something deeper. Trust. The weapon that nearly erased everything had not come from humanity. It had come from the very Council that once promised peace. That realization rippled through every world, every colony, every star system that had lived under their rule. People began to question the lies they had accepted for generations. And for the first time in centuries, they began to speak freely. The once united Galactic Council collapsed in days. Leaders who had hidden behind walls of power and wealth were now exposed. Whole species withdrew their fleets, refusing to follow the old commands. Empires that had stood for millennia began to crumble under the weight of truth. Yet amidst the chaos, there was one question repeated across the stars. Where were the humans now? No one knew. The Terran fleets had vanished after the battle. Their ships, damaged but not destroyed, had entered slipspace and disappeared into the dark, leaving behind nothing but wreckage and a single transmission. Our work here is done. The galaxy must find its own way. That simple message became a spark of hope for many, and a warning for others. Admiral Rye, who had once stood against Hale, found herself wandering the quiet halls of her flagship, staring out at the endless horizon. The stars had never looked so still. Her people had survived, but the cost was more than ships or soldiers. It was certainty. The galaxy's foundations had been rewritten. She couldn't shake Hale's last words. We didn't win. We just stopped everyone from losing. In those words, she finally understood what humanity truly was. Not conquerors, not monsters, but survivors who fought not for dominance, but for meaning. Across dozens of liberated worlds, a new alliance began to form, not out of fear, but out of choice. They called it the Accord of Dawn, a coalition built on truth and equality rather than control. Its symbol was simple, a single circle of stars surrounding a small blue light, the color of Earth's oceans, the world that started it all. It was said that even those who once hated humanity now used that light as a reminder of what they could become when united. On a small moon, hidden at the edge of known space, a human settlement quietly thrived. The people there were not soldiers anymore. They were builders, scientists, teachers. They called their home New Terra, though most of them still dreamed of returning to the old Earth someday. The scars of war remained, but so did the determination that had carried their ancestors through centuries of silence. Commander Hale lived there too, though few ever saw him. He spent his days walking the quiet paths between steel fields and domed gardens, far from the noise of fleets and politics. To most, he was just another survivor. To those who knew, he was the man who had turned the galaxy's darkest hour into its rebirth. Yet Hale didn't see himself as a savior. He saw himself as a witness, someone who had seen how easily peace could be corrupted, and how deeply truth could heal. One evening, as the twin suns of New Terra dipped beneath the horizon, Hale sat by a small observation deck overlooking the valley. Beside him stood his second-in-command, who had been with him since the first signal was sent. The younger officer broke the silence. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" he asked. Hale took a slow breath before answering. "Forgiveness isn't the goal. Understanding is." He looked out toward the stars, their faint light reflecting in his eyes. "They'll remember us as what we were, flawed, stubborn, and human. That's enough." Far across the stars, remnants of the old council tried to rebuild, but they no longer ruled through fear. The galaxy had changed too much. New voices rose, voices of unity, of cooperation, of balance. Humanity had forced them to see themselves for what they truly were. And while some still whispered that the Terrans were dangerous, most had come to accept that maybe, just maybe, humanity had returned not to destroy, but to remind. Years later, when the Accord of Dawn officially declared the beginning of a new galactic age, a small beacon appeared in the skies above every member world. It wasn't a message or a threat, just a faint blue light pulsing in rhythm, the same frequency as the old Terran heartbeat. The scientists couldn't trace where it came from. Some said it was an automated signal left behind by the human fleet. Others believed it was something else, a promise that humanity was still out there, watching. On New Terra, children grew up learning both the history of the galaxy and the truth of their people. They studied the mistakes of the past not to repeat them, but to understand them. Humanity had learned that survival wasn't just about strength. It was about memory. Remembering who they were, what they had lost, and what they still hoped to build. One quiet night, long after the stars had dimmed and the stories of war had turned into legend, a small transmission flickered across deep space channels. It wasn't a command or a declaration, just a voice. Calm, steady, unmistakably human. "If you can hear this," the voice said, "remember, our silence was never absence." It was a choice. We waited until the galaxy was ready to listen. The message repeated 3 times before fading. In the centuries that followed, explorers and travelers spoke of strange encounters in the farthest reaches of space, fleeting glimpses of ships that moved like shadows, voices that echoed through the static, guiding lost vessels home. No one could ever confirm it. But they all told the same story. When everything seems lost, when darkness closes in, a faint human voice whispers through the stars, "We're still here." The galaxy never forgot that message. It became a symbol of resilience, of the power to rise again no matter how deep the fall. Humanity's return had not brought domination, but renewal. They reminded the galaxy of something it had long forgotten, that the true strength of any civilization lies not in weapons or wealth, but in its ability to learn, adapt, and endure. And so, the silence that had once defined the galaxy transformed into something new, a calm before creation. The stars no longer feared the return of humanity. They waited for their guidance, because even after all the pain, all the loss, one truth remained unshaken. Wherever there were stars, there would always be someone listening, waiting, hoping. Humanity had left the center of the galaxy behind, but their legacy lived on in every alliance formed, every hand extended, every voice that chose peace over fear. They had come full circle, from the ashes of betrayal to the dawn of understanding, and though no one knew where they had gone, their message endured across time and light. When the galaxy forgets what it means to be alive, humanity will return to remind it. And so, as the last signal from New Terra faded into the black, the universe remained still for a moment, listening. Then, faintly, almost too quietly to hear, a familiar human whisper drifted through the stars once more. "We're coming, not to fight this time, but to help." And with that, the galaxy exhaled, no longer in fear, but in hope. Humanity had not just survived. They had taught the stars what it meant to be truly alive.